For me, my leap allowed these seedlings of crazy ideas to come to the surface instead of the traditional path of it looks good on paper, but does it feel good in my body? Right? Does my head say yes? Does my gut say yes? And does my heart say yes? And my head said yes to that, like, great job. But my gut and my body said no.
Hey, Nicole, what do you get when a former corporate CEO and a do-gooding executive walk into a recording studio?
Well, Aaron, nothing, because the two of us are usually on my couch or Zoom, because wine.
You get a podcast created for Gen X women who are bought into the corporate world, but fed up with the BS.
I know. It's how to thrive the 9 to 5 or 6 or 7.
Yeah, it's career therapy. It's comedy. It's definitely full on authenticity. Basically, we give you tangible strategies to rise in your career without compromising everything else.
Because work doesn't have to suck.
Hey, friends, Erin here. And I'm just here to introduce yet another amazing interview. And this one is actually a returner. Mel Miles. She was also episode 106. Nicole interviewed her back, a couple of years ago, year and a half ago. And I had actually introduced the two of them because there's so much they have in common, and just thought it was a beautiful story for them to tell together. But I had her on because she has a book called Soulcation, Designing a Life You Don't Need a Vacation From. And I just believe so much in Mel. I mean, anybody that knows me, quite frankly, follows her on Instagram. So many of my friends follow her because what she talks about resonates with them so much. She's a absolutely beautiful soul, really giving and vulnerable with her story and the challenges she's been through. But it doesn't just tell that. She has a formula, if you will, or tangible things that you can start to do to truly put more joy and more space in your life so that you don't have to just go on a vacation and then come back to all the things that stress you out. So a little bit about Mel. She's a coach, speaker, and founder of Soulcation is actually her company. And she works with corporations and entrepreneurs. She's a speaker. She also works with individuals. She does select coaching with individuals to help them also design the life that they don't need a vacation from. But she started out with a big career, like so many of you. She was a program officer at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Like this chick, I mean, she knows them. She met them. She did work for them, and she did powerful work. She was focused on eradicating malaria and spent a lot of time in Africa, doing hands-on work as well as, doing the corporate work that she handled as well. And as her story goes, she one day found herself on the floor of the bathroom at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And she thought she was having a heart attack. She thought she had something serious. She quite frankly thought that she potentially could be dying. And come to find out it was a panic attack. And that panic attack was just the final sort of thing that the universe was trying to tell her, that she had taken on too much. She'd been working too much. She'd been through a lot of trauma in her life, which she talks about in her book. And after she realized this, she decided to walk away, and not just walk away for herself, but walk away with curiosity, because she really had this question that she wanted to answer. Like, how do we continue to go about living our lives like we do today, with the chaos and the anxiety and the stress and the work? Or can we change that? And so she spent the last few years living out what she's preaching, collecting data, both firsthand and through other research, and just curating an incredible message that is a combination of her own story, her own, the metaphor she brings forth, and the real stories are so powerful, but also stories of others, and then ultimately a seven step framework for how you too can live a life you don't need a vacation from. So anyways, without further ado, I hope you enjoyed this conversation I had with Mel. So, Soulcation, I mean, first of all, what a word. You talk in the book about not defining it, but kind of defining it and how important. So first, let's talk about what does soulcation mean to you and why is it important that it's both defined and maybe not completely defined?
Absolutely. So it's a mix of two words, right? Soul and vacation. And my reflection on the travel industry and the vacation industry is often we go away to escape our life.
Mm,
We want to break from the boss, the demanding housework, like the day-to-day churn. But yeah, we go back to the same life that like leaves us anxious, exhausted, overwhelmed, stressed. And when I first set out on my own soulcation, I'm trained as a scientist, right? So my hypothesis was, is there a way to bring the things I love to do on vacation in my everyday life?
mm,
And so soulcation is really a way of living at your life that supports your well-being, your physical and mental health, and is aligned energetically with your soul. So it's not prescriptive in that everyone else is going to have something different that brings them alive, a different routine and hobbies and activities. But the process of committing to experimenting with our lifestyle until we land at a place that feels manageable, that feels aligned with our energy, we're not living the soulcation way. And like, I think the opposite of soulcation way is probably the hustle way, the self abandonment way,
mhm,
the self betrayal way, the way of doing things. It's just like, it hurts, but I'm going to hunker down and muscle through.
mm.
Right. And I'm going to deny my needs, wants, and desires along the way. And so, soulcation is really the path of ease and the path of gentleness. And I define it as often people try harder, but they don't try softer. And so soulcation is an invitation to applying life design principles as you would do to designing a career, designing a home, to your own well-being and the rhythms that you live day to day.
So you talk about something you call fake rest effect. Tell us about that.
Yes, I believe there is nourishing rest and fake rest. And lots of women are very good at fake rest, which is maybe there's a movie on in the background, but we're folding laundry or doing chores, or maybe it's a lazy Saturday morning because you're in your pajamas, but you're running through your to-do list and you're like emotionally planning your kids' needs and your husband's needs and like mapping out the schedule for the week. And so our bodies might be in rest mode, but our minds aren't. And I think
Mm.
like the fullness of rest comes when both our minds and our bodies are in the state of like stillness, pause, nothingness. And um we also can do fake rest whenever we abandon our needs, right? Like fake rest can even be socializing or doing something that you think is restful, but maybe you had committed to a happy hour and actually what you need is like a night in talking to no one. And so we can fill our schedules with things that we think are rest without actually tuning into our body and asking, what do I need right now? And if we're not honoring the answer to that question, I think it's fake rest.
Yeah. And, it's interesting when I read that too. I expanded it beyond the rest. I thought of, almost fake joy. The example that came to my mind immediately was um, a should for my husband and I is sort of date night, right? Like we should go out without the kids and have dinner and have drinks. And the reality is, we're actually more joyful when we're having a drink together on our couch, probably watching a sporting event, probably with the kids not bugging us, but, they don't have to be gone. So I think this concept of fake rest, of fake joy, I mean, it sort of falls into that whole should is just something that I think it was really empowering to read to say, yeah, I don't have to do what seems to be right
Mhm.
for everybody else or what the should is around rest and
And
joy.
they've also done studies on the amount of time we rest. And the shocking thing is they studied like CEOs, leaders, working moms, people that you would think don't have a lot of time to rest. And actually, I mean, the human body can only work so much. So the shocking thing is that even people that have very demanding schedules spend at least an hour or two in what they classified as rest time.
Mm,
But the difference was from the overwhelmed and stressed people to the not overwhelmed and not stressed people were the type of rest they were doing, right? So some people were numbing out on scrolling their phone. It's like they just they didn't have time to think about what they even needed. And so their rest time was like scrolling the phone or binge watching Netflix. And so it's more numbing rest, right? It's like disassociation and numbing rest versus the people that had the same busy schedules, also corporate executives, but put some intention into those 1 or 2 hours that they would get to themselves and did something that was more restorative.
Yeah. And I love, you talked about that in the book about this planning concept. Like you have to plan rest. So you just gave an example, like all of a sudden you have 45 minutes. It happened to me actually last night. And I like found myself doom scrolling and I'm like, that's not right. So talk to us about this concept of planning your rest and how important that is.
Oh, I think it can change your life. And particularly for women and professionals that have a great muscle to plan, right? We do this with our work life all the time. We set like goals for the week and for the month and for the quarter. And we don't bring that same energy into planning our rest. And so one thing I do with clients is we do a lot of study of, vacations and what they like to do on vacation, what they like to learn and who they are. And so they can tap into this, usually we're our best selves on vacation, but I'll just say we come up with a happy list or a rest list, which is essentially before you're tired, before you're exhausted, having that go-to list of things that will be restorative and nourishing. And then strategically, literally plan it when you plan your food. Like I write down the 3 most important work things I do every day, but I also write down 1 or 2 things I'm going to do for play every day. And so it's a commitment to myself to add that to the to-do list, just like you would need to make a grocery run in a way that brings intentionality and is an act of rebellious self-love in some ways. And I always think when I work with people that are so good at achieving things and checking things off their list, they don't have like a me list. And so the concept of creating a me list or a happy list, and however you manage your day, whether it be Google calendars or paper calendar, making sure that you schedule that time in for yourself.
I love that. So when you talk to people, whether it's clients or other people, and maybe you can get into the minds of our listeners right now who are probably saying, that sounds great, but what's the first barrier? What's the first objection? What's the first sort of snarky reaction to this concept of planning out this happy list and actually executing this time that most people would say, but I'm the person that doesn't have it. I just don't have it.
Well, I think what I just said, right? All the research shows is yes, you do. You think you don't, but you're just spending it on something else or not intentionally. I think too, sometimes the pain has to get bad enough before we realize that it's important enough.
Yeah.
And so, it's a choice, whether it's conscious or not, whether like if you're not giving yourself what you need, that certainly is a choice. And you feel like there's barriers and boundaries. And why I wrote Soulcation is because I don't believe you have to quit your job. I don't believe you have to, right, go on a grand sabbatical. I don't believe you need to spend a lot of money on yourself in order to design a life don't need a vacation from. What you need to do is become the permission giver that you're looking for everyone else to give you permission that you can give yourself, and to do the work to like actually choose a different way. And so I think sometimes we believe we can because it's this like limiting mindset. But there's so much research that even the average employee works like 4 to 5 hours of productive time a day. So I actually believe in the modern society, like people say, well, I have 8 hours in the job and then cooking. Like there's a way, especially in the work from home culture. And I'm a big advocate, even in my own company that I work with right now, is what if we worked 4 to 6 hours of really efficient, productive time and reclaimed 2 hours and got clear on, do we want to learn a new hobby or start our own project or do something for ourselves? And so this mindset that time is constrained probably means there's misalignment between the energy you have, what you want to do and what you need, and coming back to alignment with those things. And also not feeling guilty, but giving ourselves permission to take back our time and our calendars and get clear on what we need to do for work. But also that doesn't have to take 8 hours a day.
Yeah. Well, I'm listening to you and I'm thinking so many of our listeners too are in leadership positions. And I think there's such a power that they hold, not just for themselves, but for their teams and influencing others around them that don't even work for them. Right. And I'm thinking about how do you I agree with you because it's sort of like, oh, the 9 to 5 is gone. That's sort of work. And then I'm always working more. Well, first of all, if you know every night you usually have to log on and do something, why can't you also give yourself back an hour or two during that sort of standard time and get off the IM and the emails? And so I think for our leaders listening too, what a great practice to take this concept and read this book, right? Like, you talk all about the happy list and how you put this together and plan out this rest. You're going to get better results for your team and for yourself.
And one thing I've heard from a lot of leaders who have read this book is the power of tapping into our playful, curious, creative side. Because I think what the mistake leaders make is sometimes like you move up, you get that leadership position, and you continue with that skill of kind of management and drive and focus without tapping. Like, new ideas require spaciousness
Yes.
and like creativity and direction and vision requires this like breath and space around your like life in order to think and look ahead. And so the passage into leadership, I believe, is actually a passage into more spaciousness in your life so that you can reconnect with the part. Like, creative energy is very tied into birthing new ideas in leadership. And oftentimes we suppress the childlike, playful self and we don't learn to play. And so Soulcation is an invitation. As an adult, you have to almost relearn and reconnect how to play, how to be bored and be in nothing, and how to inspire yourself. And so I think anyone who feels like they're hitting a wall or not moving up in the next level in their career, maybe you actually just haven't tried evoking play, creativity, and curiosity.
So true. So yeah, it's not like giving this space, you're giving up the work, you're actually adding, right, to the impact that you and your team could have. And I think M. Stroud. Do you know M? Right? And I just think of
So good.
all the work she does, right? Like, and literally works with executive teams to introduce more play, to lead to more innovation, better business results, et cetera. So I think it all, ties together. What you're teaching and what you're talking about isn't just a selfish act. It's actually something that is going to be for the greater good of, the organization, your career, et cetera. It's not taking away from that. I agree completely.
Hey there, it's Erin. I'm just popping in real quick to ask you a question. Is there any chance you know someone who is looking for a keynote speaker for their upcoming event? Look, I know that many event organizers, they struggle to find a speaker who provides both tangible value and business knowledge, but that also lights their audience on fire. And I truly believe there aren't many speakers like me out there who are both former corporate executives and professionally trained speakers. And there's definitely none that roll in with an orange suitcase they unpack with their audience. Trust me on that. I would love nothing more than to bring my message of using authenticity as your strategic career and business advantage to people spinning in your universe, especially if you'd be there. I promise my talks always create an immediate buzz, but not just right after, but for months and years after the event is over. You can learn more about my message, style, and reviews, and share my speaking info by going to beauthenticinc.com/keynote-speaking. That's B, just the letter B, authenticinc.com/keynote-speaking. Or of course, we have it right in the show notes to make it easy for you too.
You talk about another thing is this patriarchal stress disorder.
It's a thing. It's a real name.
It's a real thing. Like, it's a real word with a lot of syllables. So it must be a real thing. Tell us more about that and its impact.
Patriarchal stress disorder is stress that is usually subconsciously originally afflicted on women from inheriting narratives that they should complete certain tasks, that they should behave in certain ways, and that success for a woman looks a certain way that requires them to give energetically significantly more than men. And so I believe it's something that's passed down through generations. I think it creates this mother wound that all women, unfortunately, you know, our only option is to heal it, but is a significant stress that I think creates barriers to women advancing in their career and feeling safe. I think our core human needs are safety, mattering, and belonging. And I'm not a mother yet, but from the mothers that I've talked to and interviewed for this book, when your kids are suffering or something at home is suffering, women often carry that burden, and they don't feel a sense of safety, mattering, or belonging anymore. And all of a sudden, their energy has to shift to that. And so women are constantly juggling energetically between two worlds that they feel deep responsibility for. And I think that deep responsibility is the cause of patriarchal stress disorder. And I think we all know it. I think we feel it in our bodies. I think this is something, it's not new, it's just now clinically defined. Um, and now it's being researched more and more I mean, women, I think they said during COVID, we were doing 71 hours of productive work between career and family, 71 hours a week compared to like 52 or something of men. So this is a reality that we live in. And I think I want to acknowledge when I speak to mothers that, especially mothers of young children, right? It's one thing to say, take care of yourself, create this happy list, right? Like create your dreams and go after them. But the reality is that there are barriers and there are times, seasons in life when you are deeply having to commit to your people. And um, that also is something that you can do with self love. I think you can do in a way that invites other people to support you and create a village around you, but it's not easy.
Yeah. What's one thing for I agree. I mean, I have children, but they're a little bit older. Not that that doesn't create its own strain, but especially during the pandemic, I really felt for people with the toddlers, and they just take constant care and feeding, quite literally. What's one thing that you've seen for somebody that's sort of at that stage in their life, as it relates to this concept of soulcation, that's been the most kind of tangible, impactful thing they've been able to do?
Probably a morning routine. And I know it can be so hard to wake up earlier than your kids,
Mm.
but I believe that so many women have morning routines that are based on discipline, whether it's like making the green juice or going to the gym or things that if they have a little bit of time for themselves, they're doing other things they should do. And I think just adding, even if it's 5 or 10 minutes of something that feels like vacation,
Mm.
right? Like that essence of fun. So all of a sudden, your morning routine, if you can get up 15 minutes earlier and read a book you love or go for a walk or something that doesn't feel hard, it doesn't feel like discipline. The point of it is not to like progress your career, make your house clean, like that the point is pure pleasure.
Yeah.
So that women can, like, I believe pleasure is your birthright. And if you're not doing something to connect with pleasure, whether that's just like the sensation of drinking your coffee slowly instead of on the go, right? You lose the sense of aliveness. So I think for women who are overwhelmed, even if they can do something in their morning routine, 10 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever, that connects them with pure pleasure and it has no point except for feeling good.
I love that. I love that, and I immediately think we were on a real vacation last week, out in Colorado, Breckenridge, and I mean, so much of it was wonderful, right? Great food, amazing skiing, like the feeling of the powder under the skis, all the things you'd expect. But if you ask me honestly, what's the thing that I loved the absolute most? It was that I got up earlier than everybody else, which was easy for me because I'm a morning person and we had the 2 hour, time change. And nobody was relying on me because we didn't ski till like 10 or 11. I'd get up around like 7 and I walked into town and I sat. I don't even drink caffeinated coffee. I only drink decaf because I'm crazy on caffeine. But I sat in a coffee shop, no more than like 30 minutes, maybe did a little work. Some days I just, read my morning news, and just that feeling of freedom and ability to walk. And so it really hits home, right? Like it's so simple. I'm not even sure if I would have put it on my happy list until I sort of reflected, and like you said, to do, like, you don't even really know what are those little joys. Or I think of I remember the pandemic was really hit hard, and Nicole, who you know, as well, podcast co-host, and who interviewed you the first time you were on, which I should have the episode number. I don't. I'll put that in the intro. I remember her distinctively mentioning one of the things she missed the most was simply driving to Dunkin' Donuts and listening to NPR and getting her coffee.
Mhm.
10-minute, 15-minute, right? A drive through, a coffee, and listening to NPR. So, yeah, I love that. I think the things that give you joy, if you can pause and really be honest with them and not have them be the shoulds, like there's so much power in that.
Mhm.
Power.
Yeah, it's reflective of a lot of the research I did for the book. And as a scientist, my hypothesis was, yeah, do you have to have a crazy lot of money and be able to like do all these grand adventures in order to live a life you don't need a vacation from? And as I interviewed women, it's like,
Mm.
what do you love most about vacation? Like, literally tell me, walk me through, right? Like scenes, memories, details. And yeah, it was the like long walk in the morning where they could leave their phone behind and weren't in a rush. It was taking a nap in the middle of the day. It was cooking dinner with like a great glass of wine and not being in a hurry to get it on the table. And so I started to realize that the actual feelings people were connecting to on vacation that brought them the most joy and created the happiest memories were feelings that they could access in their everyday life.
I love that so much. It stirs up so many ideas for me, and and I'm sure for our listeners. I love that so much. I think of even last night, like making dinner and feeling like, oh, it has to be ready by like 6:30, quarter 7. And meanwhile, like my son wasn't hungry, my husband was out in the yard doing things, and I'm like, why do I put this pressure that it has to, sort of be ready? Um, I talked a little bit about your story, in the intro, and there's so much of it in the book. It's such a vulnerable story that you share and an evolving story. But one of them, and I want everybody to read the book to get all that. But one of the stories I love, it's a metaphorical one. You talked about one of the first things you did when you decided to leave your job was to go learn how to do trapeze. Love that story. Love that metaphor. Tell us about that.
Had never flown before. Um, and this is my very first trapeze lesson, right? Walk into a huge warehouse in Seattle. It's like 5 stories tall with a ladder up to the top. They give us like 20 minutes of ground school. And I'm just like, I remember it was like the requirements were, are you this tall? You can't drink alcohol. Please wear yoga pants. I was like, check, check, check. Like, I can do this. And the reason why I did it, which I want your listeners to know, is I was so afraid to
Mm.
leap out of my dream job at the time, working for the richest couple in the world, managing hundreds of millions of dollars. And I think whenever we make a career transition, it is scary as hell. And that fear lives in our body, in our nervous system. And it's actually the part of our brain that processes physical pain. Like if you got in a car accident, Erin, and heaven forbid, like tomorrow, and broke your leg, like that pain is registered in the nervous system very similar to emotional pain. So if you are feeling tremendous fear, it is literally like changing how your whole immune system and neurobiology is working. So my fear was in my body and I didn't know what to do with that because I was like, I can't like this fear is overwhelming me. It's so hard to make this decision. And I had a coach at the time be like, you need to physically have the feeling of what it's like to leap and be safe.
Mm.
And so I climbed. So I did ground school. I climbed that freaking ladder 5 stories up, right? It's like had the instructor holding me as I like my toes were over the board. You lean forward and you like hold on and fly. And the first time I literally like my palms were sweating. I couldn't even move my leg. That was like a pencil. I just like I was like dangling in the middle of the arena and just like finally dropped down. And after like another time and another time, I started getting it. But the thing I learned about flying is you are a great flyer if you're so first of all, your eyes never face the person catching you. So they do that on purpose because if you can see your catcher, you often like move or change and actually slip. And so you don't actually get to see who's catching you because your body needs to be so loose and so soft. And it's the catcher that's doing all the work, right? Like your job is just to believe the catcher is going to meet you. You hold out your hands. And it was such a lesson for how to leap out of life, right? That you don't exactly know where you're going to end up. All you have to be is like open, available, and really, right? Like anyone can do it. Like if I can do it, anyone can do it. But it was a great way for me to be reminded that whenever we leap out of something in our life, that we can be held and caught. And really, the work of being a human is knowing it's time to leap, letting go without yet knowing the answers, without yet knowing where we're going to end up, and know the net's going to appear. And so, yeah, someone said, no, like, Mel, leap and the net will appear. And I was like, oh, I don't know about that. Um, and it's true. You can leap and the net will appear.
At one point, after you literally made the leap, you took a trip to Peru. You were doing great, and then all this other crap happened as you were trying to be this free-wheeling, Soulcation person.
So when I leaped, I flew to Spain and I decided to walk the Camino de Santiago, which is a 500-kilometer pilgrimage across Spain. And what I'll say is there was like no GPS, no map. There's just these spray painted yellow arrows on the ground. And I was like, I don't know, they've been around for hundreds of years. I was like, some kid must have changed like one arrow. Like, there's no way I'm walking through a whole country, but just spray painted yellow arrows. I did. I made it to the end. But that was a lesson in just look for the next yellow arrow. And I think the mistake we make when we leap is that we feel like we're doing something wrong or it's not okay because we don't have all the yellow arrows figured out. And we want this like grand roadmap, but really the mystery and magic of a leap, like why a trapeze artist is so beautiful flying through the air is right that they don't know exactly when they're going to be caught. And so if we can just look to the next right thing in our leap and know that that's enough, right? To know we're doing a good job and we can get clear on the next right hypothesis that we test that may or may not be right. And I do think we have these like, moments of no return or the universe tests us. Like when I left my job and was like, I'm committed to writing, I'm committed to healing, I'm committed to this season of rest. All of a sudden, I get a phone call from my dream company offering me my dream job, that I thought I wouldn't get for years. Great salary, like literally just handed on a silver platter. And I remember making a pro and con list. And obviously on the pro list was like all these things, right? Like it was the next step. It was an executive role. It was all these things. But on the con list, I was like, at first it was blank. I was like, I have to take this. But then I wrote, I will never know, right? What else would come up or what else my heart would want to do if I don't give my heart space to experiment. And I think we forget that that's what we miss out on when we don't kind of create these pauses in our life that what we think we want may actually not be what we want, but we have to do that deep self-listening and discovery. So sometimes with the leap, then there's this like dormancy, right? Where you're kind of like, I feel like it's almost like nature, right? The trees die, winter comes, right? Like there's no one there. You're not making any money. You're like frozen and like sugar confused. And you're like, is this good? Like, is this supposed to be what transition feels like? And yes, that's actually what transition feels like is this dormancy for me to have time to say, but what if, right? What if this dream of writing a book? What if this dream of starting a company? I'm either going to do it now or tell myself I'm going to do it when I retire. And so for me, my leap allowed these seedlings of crazy ideas to come to the surface instead of the traditional path of it looks good on paper, but does it feel good in my body, right? Does my head say yes? Does my gut say yes? And does my heart say yes? And my head said yes to that, like, great job. But my gut and my body said no.
Yeah. Oh, it's so beautiful. I remember you wrote in the book too. I didn't write it down, but it was something like, at first you're like, if this is what Soulcation is supposed to like feel like, I don't want any part of it, right? Because, the quote unquote winter had hit you and, here you were with a suitcase and, no driver and, all these these things. But, I also believe that if it were easy, everybody would do it. And then it wouldn't be possible for everybody to do it, right? There's only the space for the brave. Um, so I want to end with a couple questions. One, actually have a framework. You have a 7-step Soulcation framework. We won't go through details of all of it, but maybe you can tell people, because so much of this, right? We've all read so many books that, just say screw it all and do this. But you actually don't just tell stories and metaphors and give science, but you also give a framework and steps. Can you tell us a little bit about that 7-step framework?
Yeah, maybe I'll just talk about a few of the steps. One being I mean, it kind of follows the word Soulcation, unlearn limiting beliefs. And I'm a nerd about internalized capitalism. So I'm just going to take a moment to say, I think so internalized capitalism is the concept that the capitalist society we live in, which is greed and has generated the most wealth in human history, has been internalized. And that makes us subconsciously believe we are defined by what we do. We can only be happy based on like what we achieve or produce, that our self-worth is deeply connected to our productivity, and that we're not allowed to rest until we achieve whatever we believe we need to achieve. And so one part of the framework is actually unlearning becoming aware of the subconscious beliefs that are driving us to anxiety or burnout or overwhelm, and then being able to rewrite that. Like I say, actually, the most courageous thing we do as humans is not like learning, but actually unlearning and relearning what is true. So one of the steps is unlearn limiting beliefs. Um, and then the second was just observing our emotions. So I actually believe that it's hard to get clear on what we want in the internal world until we actually are deeply connected with all the emotions in our body. And this can be, you know, deeply hard work when sometimes success and work can actually be us hiding and numbing from grief, sadness, anguish, anger that we don't want to feel. And so part of what I teach in the Soulcation framework, I mean, I'm not a trained therapist, is to reconnect and observe the emotions and use those as a guide. So, I mean, emotions should never run us, but I think our body carries amazing information, and that our emotions are one of those tools that we can use to access to make decisions from this intuitive place rather from the head space. And I always say the longest journey I took was the 18 inches from my head to my heart. Because I think when we have access to the heart space as a leader, as an employee, as a human, we just have so much more clarity, because we all know what it feels like to make a decision, but then not feel good about it, right? To be like, oh, I did that because I should, but maybe not, maybe. And the only way we can make decisions with clarity is to actually turn inward and be connected to our inner compass. So, yeah, one of the steps of Soulcation is writing down your feelings every day and then asking yourself, right, if these sensations had words, what would they be telling you, so that you can access your heart and gut wisdom. So those are just 2 steps of the Soulcation framework, but I walk people through kind of like a 7-step process of studying who you are on vacation, what components of those like feelings and activities that bring you the most joy, how to plan them in your everyday life, and then accessing kind of the intuition, emotions, inner wisdom, so that you're prepared to make decisions, whether that be for work, relationships, life. And ultimately, the final step is design a life you don't need a vacation from, which is the goal that you have a blueprint of clarity, not just what you want on your career or whatever dimension of life you care about, but the lifestyle of how you want to live it, right? How you want to feel in your day-to-day life. What is the pace? What does your morning routine look like? When are you taking breaks? So that you're defined more by your lifestyle, because the things you do are going to come and go, but you have the power to choose your lifestyle.
Yeah, and it's so powerful. It so hits home with me. Like, for example, this summer there's a national conference that is a major should for me. Right? Everybody in my industry goes to it. It's the place to be. There's some powerful people I can network with. And I keep thinking about it, and I'm like, it's the weekend before my birthday. It's on a weekend. Like, summer here in the Northeast is like maybe 8 weeks if you're lucky, right? It's my favorite time of the year. And I'm like, I really don't want to go. And, if I take your advice and think, okay, ultimately, why did I leave the corporate world? Why did I start my business? What is my ultimate goal with the business? It's not to build an empire. It's to impact, the corporate system and make it more authentic, but it's also to have this lifestyle that I love. And so I love that, because now if I take a page out of the Soulcation sort of manual, if you will, I do not go to that conference. It's that simple of a decision, right? Because it goes against the definition of what I want to feel. I love that. Um, Last question for you. So you talk a lot in the book about your journey, and you talk about all these things that you've transformed, and how to transform other people to this life they don't need a vacation from. What's been the one hardest thing for you that you feel like you have to keep learning and relearning and reapplying as you go about this journey to sort of live out what you preach and teach?
Oh, to go slowly. Yeah, to try softer, not harder. It's so funny when I left the hustle of the corporate world that I was like, well, I'll just deploy this energy into like my love life or my like hobbies, and I'll like become great at sailing and dancing and wanting to go fast. So I think I continue to realize that the only way you build a beautiful life is brick by brick. Um, Slowly by slowly, one step at a time. But it's still something that I daily have to practice, is the art of slowness and the art of attentiveness, because really anxiety can't be met with hustle. Anxiety can't be met with high energy. It has to be literally met with nothingness, spaciousness, slowness, and simplicity.
I love that. I love that. You set me out on a great, great course for today and for the rest of the week. And definitely our listeners hopefully feel that same way, even if they just take one small action to slow down, to work slower, not harder, and to know what makes them happy, and practice that intentional rest. So thank you so much. You know how much I adore you. And I can't wait to see all the impact that you make.
Hey, it's Erin with a teeny request. If you have ever gotten any value from this podcast and you'd like us to stick around, plus you want it to continue to grow so we can kind of swindle bigger and more knowledgeable guests to join us, and to keep providing you with tangible and inspiring actions you can take to achieve the career and life you deserve, could you please just take 1 minute to leave us a rating and a review? Those reviews go a long way in attracting guests to the show, and candidly, they really make Nicole and I's day. We see you. We really do. So when you have the time and inspiration, we'd love to see a rating and review from you. Thank you.